We interrupt your regularly scheduled programming at selloutcrowd.com for and on Mind Games and two on OSU. Mind on OSU is what we're going to call this. For a little breaking news regarding Cowboy football, I'm Guerin Emig, Sellout Crowd columnist. My friend and colleague Ben Hutchens, one of our crack beat writers, along with his twin brother Sam, has joined me for a very good reason. We have news out of Stillwater OSU football announcing today that Alan Bowman, the starting quarterback of the Cowboys, has been granted a 7th year of college eligibility. That news came down, and then Alan Bowman took to social media to declare that, thank you very much, NCAA. I, in fact, will take it and use it in Stillwater as the returning starting quarterback of the Cowboys. Ben, let's start with the basic. Were you surprised by the decision of either the NCAA to allow the 7th year or by Bowman to come back to Stillwater?
Guerin, I wasn't really surprised with either decision. Sam had talked to a compliance person formerly at OSU, and he indicated to us that Allen was a good candidate for a medical hardship waiver, which, from what we understand, is what is allowing him to return to Stillwater next season. It goes back to his broken collarbone in 2019 at Texas Tech that cut that season short, combined, the press release said, with him redshirting at Michigan. So that's why the Cowboys are going to have a 24-year-old quarterback next season in Stillwater.
For a 7th season. Interesting. I'm glad you brought up Texas Tech. The injury occurred when he was with the Red Raiders, and Texas Tech was included in the OSU release. We're not conditioned around the Big 12 to pat each other on the back. I don't think we're as territorial as the SEC, right? But OSU did make sure to say thank you to Texas Tech for their assistance in the process. So good on the Red Raiders for doing the right thing and helping Bowman get another year, right?
Yeah, no doubt. It sounded like this was certainly a collaborative effort to get the documentation and to get everything in order, as you know, with the NCAA. And that's why I think maybe Alan Bowman was always kind of hesitating around giving a definitive answer on, hey, I'm coming back. He was always kind of talking hopeful, optimistically. He indicated after the bowl game, he felt a couple weeks left. Sure enough, it happened in that time frame. And he'd always kind of said, hey, I'd be honored to play at OSU next season. He told us that. So it's really no surprise that Allen is coming back. And yeah, it's certainly a collaborative effort. A lot of moving parts here that finally came together. And Guerin, give the Cowboys, I think, a really important piece for next year's offense.
Yeah, let's talk about that, right? Let's springboard into next year. You and your brother have already spent some podcast time and written some things detailing how things look really sunny for OSU going into the first Big 12 season without Oklahoma or Texas. You look for momentum in a situation like that. It appears the Cowboys have, and not just because they beat Texas A&M in the Texas Bowl. I mean, that was an expected situation with the Aggies decimated by their opt-outs and their portal defections. But it's more who is coming back next season. And I think the balance tips in favor of the offense, right? I mean, most of the major pieces, Colin Oliver being the exception, who have announced that they're coming back are on offense, correct? Or have I missed somebody?
Yeah, there have been a lot of announcements, I would say, on both sides. I don't think there's been as many big announcements on defense because there hasn't been as many defensive stars for OSU on that side.
Right.
But yeah, Ollie Gordon, the big one, Brennan Presley announced he's back. Alan Bowman, Rashad Owens is expected back. Deshaun Stribling to round out a solid receiving core. So it certainly is a hopeful and certainly good signs for OSU's offense next season. Bowman was asked about it after the Texas Bowl, and he kind of cut off the question asker when asked, hey, what could maybe next season look like? He said, dangerous for sure.
That leads me to another question. I answered reader's email in my newsletter for Sellout this week, Ben, and the first one out of the gate was about Bowman, just so happens, asking if we were sure he was going to be the starter should the NCAA come through with the medical hardship waiver, number one. And then number two, how do we feel about it? And it wasn't, I mean, again, he had a lot of high moments, a lot of really strong moments over the course of this past season. Once he was entrenched as a starter, that's for another podcast. We're not going to get back into that mess. But, he's threw for 400 yards the last time we saw him, right? An OSU bowl record against A&M down in Houston. But Ben, the narrative also tilts the other way with this guy. 14 interceptions to go with 15 touchdown passes. a lot of confusing throws, a lot of near misses. It could have been interceptions along the way. Number one, let's do this two ways. Number one, there's no way he isn't the starting quarterback, correct?
That's certainly my sense, right?
Yeah,
When you look at the way this season changed when Bowman was slotted in, it's one of the two kind of points this season flipped, with the other being Ollie Gordon reworking kind of the offensive scheme. It is my sense, I think, that Bowman will be the starter in
mm-hmm.
2024 because he already beat out Rangel in a battle, right?
Right.
You would assume he would be the front runner. And I asked Casey Dunn about all this because he is a guy who knows much more about it than me and told me, look, at the time, of course, Bowman's decision hadn't been announced, but he said, well, we'd love to have him back. If not, we feel great about the options we have. Those options, of course, being Garrett Rangel and Zane Flores, both freshmen now. Dunn said, well, we feel good about the options that we have, and it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic there kind of changes and shifts and morphs as time passes.
You might keep an eye on Rangel in relation to the next portal window. That's in April after spring, right? April 16th to the 30th, I believe.
Yeah.
He didn't win the job when given an equal shot, all things being the same with Bowman and Gunnar Gundy. Still, unless I missed it, still with the program. Gunnar is not. Gunner's decided to transfer out. Rangel's still there. Flores is still there, but Flores hasn't been with the program that long. We sort of expect him to be there. But I wonder now with the news with Bowman official, what's going through Garrett Rangel's mind right now.
That's all I can do is wonder at what is going through Garrett's mind. And those were the three guys. There were three guys Casey Dunn brought up when I talked to him after the Texas Bowl. He said Rangel, he said Flores, and he also brought up the incoming true freshman, Milwaukee Smith, who is the leader in the Cowboys recruiting class this season. Those were the three players he mentioned as players he feels have all bright futures. Whether those futures are in Stillwater or elsewhere kind of remains to be seen.
With Bowman having a mostly strong but somewhat uneven season, the Cowboys beat Oklahoma and made the Big 12 championship game, ended up with 10 wins. Success all the way around, especially considering where they were in September, right? For them to do better next year with all of this firepower back on offense in particular, led by Presley and Gordon, a lot of returning offensive linemen as well. How much better does Bowman need to be for the Cowboys to take the elusive step in terms of finally getting that Big 12 championship trophy back in the Boone Pickens case?
Yeah, you'd certainly like to see the interception and touchdown ratio, I think, improve a little bit, Guerin. But I don't know if Alan Bowman needs to be that much better for the Cowboys to have a lot of success in 2024. Partially one of his biggest strengths with this team is the intangibles, the leadership you have with the guy who's so much older, so much more experienced. The kind of mojo of this team, I think, shifted when Bowman got that full-time job. And I think that's part of his contributions to the team is just the intangibles he brings, aside from, how he can throw for 400 yards against Texas A&M in the Texas.
That's a great point. A lot of that buzz that you're talking about, sort of the I don't know if it's fire. I don't know if it was just someone to latch on to. A lot of that was centered around Gordon for production reasons and for personality reasons, because he's got a pretty magnetic personality. Bowman didn't take much of a backseat to Ollie, though, in that regard. In fact, the two did a lot of back and forth in post-game media sessions in the interview room that was amusing. And I'm going to say this: we're not supposed to root for stories, because that's what they teach us in journalism school. Be neutral when it comes to just about everything you write about and any team that you cover. I'm not saying I'm going to pull for the Cowboys to win 10 or 11 games next season, although it's more fun to cover a winning team. I'll say this, though, Ben. I like Alan Bowman. He seems like a decent, wholesome kid. Not a kid if he's going to be 24, right? 24 in March. So what you're saying?
He'll be 24 in March, yeah.
Decent, wholesome man who gives interest and interest to thought. He gives thoughtful interest and interest to our questions. I've said this on my show and maybe on you and your brothers as well, and other platforms that sell out. Love it when we have conversations, not so much questions and answer sessions. It'll be cool to have Bowman back for our sake for that reason.
Well, and I think that's the opinion of not just journalists. I think fans, teammates, everybody in Stillwater likes Alan Bowman. And that's because, Guerin, another important thing we need to bring up is the job Alan did kind of ingratiating himself and bringing on so much of the history and the culture of OSU and Stillwater. Think about the jerseys he wears to his post-game press
Right,
conferences, and
right.
Brandon Whedon and Josh Fields and all of the legends he's kind of taken on. It shows up with the way his teammates interact with him. They love him. Ollie Gordon, as you said, we'll go over there, and well, I guess Ollie's talking to everybody post game, but uh, it does certainly seem that people like Bowman because of the way he's kind of taken on Stillwater and taken on the culture and history of Oklahoma State.
Your brother Sam has a story that's going to be on selloutcrowd.com very soon. If not by the time we wrap up here, you'll want to check that out. If you haven't already, start browsing because it's coming soon. I have a column that's going to be on the site either later tonight or tomorrow morning about the importance of player retention. It's pre-written. I'm going to have to edit it a little bit now that Bowman's news is out. But about Mike Gundy's turnabout from a year ago when he was losing, it felt like more than he was keeping in terms of key pieces. Spencer Sanders being the most obvious one. Things are different this time around with the likes of Oliver and Presley and Gordon certainly, and now you can add Alan Bowman to the list. So it's a pretty decent time, right, for the time being, to be a Cowboy fan. A lot to be excited about moving into spring ball, winter conditioning, whatever you want to call it. And the latest reason for that happened just a few minutes ago with Alan Bowman's 7th year granted by the NCAA and his announcement that he is coming back to the Cowboys. Thanks to Ben, thanks to Sam, thanks to our friends at Sellout Crowd, thanks to our tireless producer Jacquelyn Musgrove for getting us on the air. Please read our material when it comes to Bowman, the Cowboys, and anything else we cover at selloutcrowd.com. We will all talk to you again soon on the Sellout Crowd Network.